Hello, I'm Tashawn Jones. This is Legacy Liner, and welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, so that means it's time to talk about one of the passengers or families that traveled on board the Titanic. If you like to hear stories about the Titanic's passengers, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dig into today's story. So today we're going to talk about the Paulson family. They were a Swedish family traveling third class on board the Titanic, and we're going to get into what happened to them. Niels and Alma Paulson were a young couple from Sweden. Now, Niels was a coal miner, and it is no secret, a coal miner has always been very dangerous, dirty work, and he decided that he wanted to do something different. He wanted to immigrate to America in hopes of building a better life. So in 1910, he packed up and moved to Chicago and got a job as a trolley car operator. Now, unfortunately, he didn't have the money to bring his wife Alma and their four children over. Now, as far as the children's names, I am not good with pronunciations, and these names are, some of them are a little difficult, but I'm still going to try. If there's anyone that knows these Swedish names, I'll put in the description what their names were, and if you know how to pronounce them or say them, please let me know, because I've been trying to figure that out for days. So the children's names were Torberg, Torberg, who was 8, Paul, who was 6, Stina, who was 4, and Gosta, who was 2. I probably completely butchered those names, but please let me know because I want to learn how to pronounce them properly. But one of the things about these videos is I love to say the names of each of these passengers just because they were human. I don't like to say this person and their children without naming their children, or this person and their husband or wife without naming that spouse. So he left in June of 1910, and he sent for his family 2 years later after saving up some money and being able to afford to buy them passage to come over to America. Now, when Alma was immigrating to America, not only would she be meeting her husband, she also had two brothers that were in Chicago as well. So on April the 10th, 1912, Alma Paulson rounded up her kids, went to Southampton, and boarded the Titanic. Now, once on board, you can probably imagine that Alma had her hands full with four children by herself. But nonetheless, she still made friends on the trip. She met another couple from Sweden, the Lindells, and she met another man from Sweden known as August Windstrom. Now, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot about her travel on the ship, other that she made friends with a few of the Swedish passengers. All the other passengers that I've done profiles on so far, they had multiple books, multiple interviews that they have done that I could use for my research. But unfortunately, with her, there wasn't a whole lot. What we do know is that on the night of the sinking, it took her a while to get the children ready. By the time Alma Paulson got all of her kids ready and got up onto the boat deck, it was too late. All of the lifeboats were gone, and the only two left were Collapsible A and Collapsible B. So, like so many passengers, she gathered her children and decided to make a last-ditch effort to get on board these collapsible boats. The problem is, the launching of the collapsible boats on the Titanic did not go smoothly at all. All the other lifeboats were filled and then lowered away, but when it comes down to the collapsible boats, they literally just floated off of the ship, and whoever was able to crawl or jump in were the ones that were able to get into the boat. It was not the normal, okay, take your hand, step over gracefully into this lifeboat type of loading that a lot of the other boats had. So as she was waiting to get into Collapsible A, she saw her friend August Windstrom, and she asked him if he could hold two of her children because there was so much chaos going on she didn't want to lose them. But right as the Titanic started to do her final plunge right before she broke in half, there was this wave that washed up onto the decks. And when this happened, it caused Alma and the two kids that she had to get washed away. And the two children that August Windstrom were holding onto were also washed out of his arms. He did eventually manage to crawl into Collapsible A himself, but he never saw Alma or any of her four children ever again. Now, fast forward a few days, Niels knew that something had happened to the Titanic. News was circulating all around the world, and he knew that that was the ship that his wife and children were on. So he got his friend, Gus Johnson, and they went to the White Star offices in Chicago. When he got to the offices, he asked if his wife and children had survived, but none of their names were found as being part of the people rescued by the Carpathia. And to me, the saddest part is that in a last kind of act of desperation, he asked them to look to see if his wife and children boarded the ship. You can only imagine it must have been going through his mind, well, hopefully they missed the boat. Hopefully something might have came up. But their names were found as passengers on board the Titanic. So it was confirmed. His wife and children boarded the Titanic, but they did not board the Carpathia. That meant that they were lost at sea. He didn't remarry until 34 years after the Titanic in 1946. He married after his retirement and moved to Culver, Indiana. Now, I wasn't able to find the exact date, but sometime in the 1950s, he planted 4 trees in honor of his wife and 4 children that died on board the Titanic. It was said that he cried while planting them, which is so touching to think about. Even after more than 40 years, this man still thought about his first wife and his children that died that night. His second wife died in 1960 at the age of 77, and not too long afterwards, he moved to Louisiana. He died September 21st, 1964, at the age of 83. On April 25th, 10 days after the sinking, body number 206 was brought on board the McKay Bennett. It was identified as 29-year-old Alma Paulson. They were able to identify her because her tickets were actually still in her pocket. Her body was laid to rest in Halifax, Nova Scotia on May the 8th, 1912. And that's the story of the Paulson family. So come back next week where we will talk about one of the crew members on board the Titanic. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe as we dig deeper into the Titanic and the story of her passengers. Y'all have a good one.